going to host lectures like this. And we're also going to have some music later on. When Petros arrives, he's stuck in traffic. He had a minor accident. So I'm going to start the presentation. I also wanted to introduce Professor Nikos Alexiou from Queen's College. Professor Alexiou is going to talk to us about an interview he took with one of the veterans of the Greek Air Force. This presentation is in English, and it also has Greek slides, so you can actually read the Greek for those of you that can read the Greek. I wanted to start talking about Greek aviation history by the fact that the aviation really began in Europe and France. So the Wright brothers flew here, but in France, what they did was they built those airplanes that could take off on their own. The Wright brothers had rails. So they had a system where they would rail an aircraft into the air. The French said, no, a real airplane can take off and land on its own accord. So there was a debate there in the early days. But the Greek Air Force has its roots in France. And this is one of the first playboy / very rich entrepreneurs that was flying airplanes. His name is Alberto Santos-Dumont, and he was a friend with Louis Cartier. And what he told him was that as an aviator, when I'm flying, I can't reach out and take out my pocket watch. So I need a way that I can look at my hand and know what time it is. So what Cartier did, he designed the first wristwatch. So if you're wearing a wristwatch, it's a piece of aviation history. Just a lot of you may not know that. So the first person who brought an airplane to Greece was somebody he was a theatrarchis. He was a show business person. He had traveled to the United States. He got involved with silent movies. And in reality, what he did was he trained cats and dogs to do shows. So he came across airplanes in the United States and in France, and he imported the first airplane, and this is what it looked like. It was a Blériot by the French man named Blériot, who also was an aviator and a pioneer. So he bought the airplane, he imported it to Greece, and he said, I'm going to fly. He had never taken a flying lesson. So he bought the plane, he said, how hard can it be? He saw the French aviators flying around, so he imports it to Greece. And he sets it up. This is what it looks like, the Blériot, and it has a 50 horsepower engine. If you know anything about horsepower, that's that's like a scooter, really, right? A Papaki has 50 HP. So he tries to take off and he can't, and he goes to Tatoi that had lots of fields back then in Athens. And finally, he couldn't take off, and he crashed the plane, and people were disappointed. The king was there, and they said, maybe we should take flying lessons. So the next person who imported planes to Greece was Emmanuel Argyropoulos. And this is another civilian. Again, this is somebody who was very rich. He had money, he had education, and this was like the new playboy thing to do, aviation. So Emmanuel Argyropoulos brought a Newport, and this is what his airplane looked like. Of course, there was a great, anticipation, and he went again to Tatoi, and what he did was, this is a little bit of information about himself. His father was an ambassador and all that. Pretty much, somebody who had a lot of funds, and he wanted to, to become the first aviator in Greece, and he did become the first aviator in Greece. So this is a picture of him that's colorized back from the roof area. This is another picture, his airplane in the roof. And this is a hangar that they built just for his flying machine. So the first flight that ever happened in Greece was in front of the Greek king, King Georgios the first, and the Prime Minister of Greece, Venizelos. So the flight takes place, it's a great success, people are applauding, and then something amazing happens. The Prime Minister of Greece boards the plane and he takes a flight as well. So he takes the Prime Minister for a ride. So this is probably the first Prime Minister that ever took a ride in an airplane ahead of the other heads of state. Venizelos was very excited. And of course, they had been using balloons in warfare, and they had tried dropping bombs from balloons and all that. It gives you a great advantage from a military perspective. And Venizelos saw that. He said, we need to buy airplanes and we need to import this new machine because we will need it for war as well. So this is what the Blériot looks like. This is the single-seater. Then it came out as a two-seater. Argyropoulos had imported the two-seater, of course. And I'm going to show you a little video just to see how this thing sounds and looks like. Bicycle wheels, fabric, wooden construction. So these machines were flimsy, but if you think about it, for people that had never seen a flying machine, that had never seen an airplane before, it was very, very exciting. You could actually see somebody climb into one of these things and take a ride up in the sky. So the third person that brings an airplane to Greece is Alexandros Karamanlakis. He's actually, it's a third plane, but he's the second actual pilot that brings an airplane to Greece. Alexandros Karamanlakis, again from France. He had met all the rich people and the aviators, or the early pioneers of the time. And what he did was he brings he imports it through Patras, because that's how from Italy to Patras he came out. And he starts doing his little test flights. And at the same time, in 1912, we have the first 4 airplanes ordered by the Greek government. So what the Greek government imported was the Henry Farman aircraft. The Henry Farman 3 was the model that they used. It's a very interesting contraption. This is Kaberos. You actually sat in front of the engine. So the engine is in the back. It's called the pusher engine. So there's 2 kinds of engines in airplanes. You have a pusher or a tractor. So if the engine is in front, it's a tractor. If the engine is in the back, it's a pusher. So this is Kaberos. Kaberos was this very colorful person. That's where the expression trelo Kaberos comes from, crazy Kaberos. If somebody calls you a trelo Kabero, it's from this lieutenant of the artillery who volunteered to become one of Greece's first aviators. This is what the airplane looked like. And the first flight of Kaberos is in 1912. So again, it was very successful. And I'm going to show you a little another video here. Somebody actually rebuilt the airplane. This is what the Farman looked like. Of course, it didn't have all the sophisticated instruments that you saw, right? They didn't have any instruments whatsoever. The wristwatch was it, the one that Cartier designed. Again, this is another image of another picture of Kaberos preparing to take off. Otrelo Kaberos. He had an untimely death. He died during the Greek occupation in 1942, 1943. You know what killed him? Tea. He was making tea and he fell asleep, and it was on the gas stove, and the tea spilled, and the gas poured into the room, and he died from gas poisoning. So it's a very, very unheroic death for somebody who lived like Kaberos. So we have the first airplanes in the Greek army, Daedalus, Aetos, Gippas, and Ierax. Okay, so Karamanlakis now sets two records. This is remember the next civilian aviator that imported a plane to Greece. And he went as high as 2,200 meters and then 3,050 meters. So you can see that Greece has only like 2 or 3 airmen. It's a very poor country. We're not the mother of aviation, and nevertheless we're breaking records already, which is quite amazing. This is another picture of Karamanlakis and his mechanic. You always have to have a good mechanic with these things. All the time they would break down and they would need lots of repairs. Now this is what Kaberos did. This is quite amazing. Kaberos got permission from the Department of the Military to alter his plane and make it into a seaplane. So my guess is that they didn't know what they were agreeing to. You can't just take pieces off of the airplane and just, make changes and the thing will fly the same way. Nevertheless, they trusted Kaberos. This is an artillery lieutenant, and he not only did he make this thing airworthy and seaworthy, right, because it was a seaplane, he actually broke a record. So he broke the speed record. He flew from Faliro to Aegina, Hydra, and he broke a record. He was timed, and this is an official record. Again, quite amazing by Greek standards that this actually happened. So then Karamanlakis gets wilder. He said, I'm going to fly from Athens to Patra. So this may seem like a long flight, okay, by standards of the time, but what Blériot had did, he flew over the English Channel. So they thought that if he can do it, we can do it. But unfortunately, he had an accident, and he fell in the Corinthian Gulf. He didn't die from the crash. He had a mechanical failure, so he had to land at sea. But he could not get away from all the hyperstructure of the plane. So one of the problems is that you get trapped by the machine, and he was taken under, and he was drowned. And this is a poster of the time honoring Karamanlakis. This is the first dead that we have in Greece. Karamanlakis is the first civilian pilot who died because of an accident, and this is a newspaper from the time talking about his death. So now we have the Balkan Wars approaching. So the Balkan Wars were the wars that Greece fought with Bulgaria and Turkey. First with Turkey, the Ottoman Empire. And then the Allied powers, Bulgaria, Greece, and Serbia fought the Ottoman Empire, and then Bulgaria was not happy with the spoils, and then Greece and Serbia allied themselves against Bulgaria, and they won that war too. So this is a picture of a Bulgarian airplane. I couldn't find the Greek picture, where they're actually dropping bombs from the plane. So they had dropped bombs before from balloons. So this is nothing new. But the airplane now gives you more mobility and agility. You can actually fly over a target and drop a bomb. So what Kaberos did was he said, we need to make our own Greek bombs for aviators. So they made bombs that would weigh 2.5 kilos. The aviator could take the bomb in his hand. He could make it active, fly over the positions and drop the bomb. Now, this had been done before. What had never been done before and happened in Greece was an airplane, a Greek airplane, actually attacked the ship. So you have a combat vessel of the Ottoman Empire that was then somebody dropped a bomb on it. So that's another Greek first in a time of war. So this is the first Greek squadron like ever. So this is the first picture in Nikopoli, Preveza, You have the first Maurice Farman. So you have these people out in the middle of nowhere trying to repair these things that look like glorified bicycles. They actually had bicycle tires on them, right, with 50 horsepower engines, and they would fly into combat, and of course people would shoot at them, right? So these were flying low and slow, and they made perfect targets. Nevertheless, they didn't seem to mind, and they flew these missions where they would go and see where the enemy was, and then fly back and drop messages to their lines, and the messenger carriers would take them to the HQ, and they would know where the enemy was. So we have first air combat missions, okay? So we have, this is where they dropped the bomb on the ship, 1913, that I mentioned before. And then we had the Alcyon was destroyed. So remember that Argyropoulos, he had the Alcyon, which was this plane that you see here, and he donated it to the Greek government. The Greek government said, if you donate the plane for the war, we're going to make you a lieutenant in the Greek army. So he got a uniform, and he actually flew missions. But unfortunately, he crash landed his plane, and this is an actual film where they're loading his plane to take it to combat, to Thessaloniki. So it's a silent film, and that's all we have that you can actually see. So they've taken it apart, and they're loading it to ship it somehow, railroad ship, I'm not sure, to actually transport it to the front line. So the Alcyon is destroyed, and of course Argyropoulos, one of the most experienced pilots, he was devastated. But the Turks, while retreating, they left the plane behind. So they found an Ottoman airplane that was a two-seater Blériot XI2, which in the Turkish archives, they say that it was destroyed, that we retreated and we destroyed the plane. The plane was found in perfect condition. The Greeks took it. They just painted over the Turkish flag, the half moon, and it actually flew for Greece. Actually, the Turks thought it was one of their own. Argyropoulos enjoyed a long time of not being shot at because they saw the plane and they thought it was one of theirs. So he had this immunity. So here we have the proposal to make the Greek Air Force. So this is like the actual law. And now the Air Force is really a thing. It was part of the army, of course. It wasn't a separate entity. And then we had this horrible accident where with this Turkish plane that was commandeered by the Greek military, Argyropoulos and Konstantinos Manos, they have an accident and they're both killed. Konstantinos Manos is another poet, playboy, rich person, bon vivant from the time. He is a relative of Aspasia Manu. Aspasia Manu was the lady that King Alexander married. Okay, that's a whole different story. That's the poor chap that got bitten by the monkey and got sepsemia. Okay, so this is the family this guy was from. So Greece mourns the second death, and this is the first combat death. So the first combat deaths in Greece was as far back as then because of Argyropoulos and Manos. The two of them were celebrated as heroes, and this is a picture of the crash and all that. So then we go into World War I. Greek Air Force in World War I, as you know, Greece was separated. They didn't want to fight the war. Half of Greece was neutral. The other half was with the Allies. We had one government in Athens, one government in Thessaloniki. Great story. I can talk about it for hours. But what's important is that Greece entered late into the war. The French occupied all of northern Greece. And one government was in the north, one government was in the south. And the government that was in the north was the Venizelos government. And they flew with the Allies. Now, the French and the British thought that the Greeks were second-tier soldiers. They didn't trust them until they proved themselves at war. And of course, the aviators did their part. And as part of World War I, Greek aviators bombed Constantinople. So this is the actual newspaper. Not a lot of people know this, that we did fight the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire had aligned itself with the Central Powers. And Austria-Hungary, Germany, and they did lose. And because they lost this war, this is a picture of the Greek plane in Ivynio before the Greek army landed in Smyrna. This is in 1918. So there were Greek wings flying over Turkey and landed, and they had bases there because of Turkey's defeat in the war and all that. We have the development of the Naval Air Corps. For a long time, we had Naftiki Aeroporia, so the Navy had its own branch. So they had their hydroplanes, and they did this naval aviation. Today, we only have helicopters for the Navy. Their base is in Marathonos, Kotroni. And this is another picture of a Navy airplane, Greek Navy airplane at the Macedonian front. Now, all this equipment was French and British equipment that they gave to us for the war. And guess what? When the French left Greece, they left all their equipment. Kind of like what happened to the Afghanistan, where they left everything and then the Taliban got it. In this case, we're the Taliban. We were very happy. The French didn't care for this equipment. They considered it old and beaten up. For Greece, this was a gift from heaven because they had all these airplanes that they could repair and they could make them work forever. So suddenly we have an Air Force. And all these planes found themselves in Asia Minor. During the Asia Minor War, we had a great Greek contingency. The Turks had nothing. If something flew, it was Greek. That's it. There was no Turkish aviation for the longest time in the Asia Minor War. And then we're going to jump all the way to World War II. We talked about World War II 10 days ago, if you were here for that. It was a great presentation. We had amazing music. These are the Greek Pezetels. The Pezetels were Polish fighters. As I said then, the Italians had two problems. One problem was that they only bought Italian for national pride. Greece could choose whatever airplanes they wanted. So we bought the best airplanes we could afford. In this case, we got a Polish fighter, and this is a MB-151 from France. The Greek airplanes, the Pezetels, they had 20 millimeter machine guns on their wings, whereas the Italian fighters, they had to fire through their propeller. So there is a way you can fire through the propeller, and you need a sinking mechanism. So the machine gun has to sync with the propeller. As the propeller is turning, you fire through the propeller and you don't damage the propeller. So, but if you do that, you have to limit the rate of fire. So the Greeks with these airplanes, because they were on the wings, as you will see, they could fire their rounds with like a lot of rounds really fast. Have you heard the expression, I went through the whole 9 yards? Has anybody heard this? Do you know where it comes from? Football. It's an aviation. It's an aviation term. 9 yards was how long the bullets were for the Spitfire. So you would push the button and you would fire, and if you went, if an aviator would land and he had no ammunition, he would say, "I went through the whole 9 yards." So it's an aviation term from World War II. So I'm going to show you here again. This is the Greek fighter in World War II. And basically, the Greek Air Force had 128 active airplanes. Only 79 were modern. And I'm going to show you what the Greek Air Force looked like. This is the case with Mitralexis, where this is like a silent animation. So the Greek Air Force was very small compared to the Italian one, and the Greeks would attack. And there's this famous case with Mitralexis. He ran out of ammunition. See how the machine guns are on the wings, away from the propeller. So these are the Italian bombers. And they're on a bomb run, and the Greeks attack them. What happened with Mitralexis was he went through the whole 9 yards. He didn't have any ammunition, and then he used his propeller to chew off part of the Italian plane and to down the Italian. Not only did he make the Italian force land, he landed behind them. He took out his revolver and he arrested the Italian pilot. It's things like this. I mean, this doesn't make a big difference in the war, but stories like this excite the imagination, and the Greeks were very proud, of course, and Mitralexis is a flying hero. Then we went to the Middle East and Italy, and I'm going to tell you a funny story. A man that I had met, that was a veteran, he wanted to go to the Navy, and they said, we have enough people in the Navy. Do you want to fly? Do you want to be an aviator? And this later became the first pilot of Olympic Airways, okay? And he was in a place called Rhodesia. The country doesn't exist anymore. What is it called now?
South Africa.
No? Zimbabwe. And the RAF was training all these Greek pilots, and they had this British officer, and he kept saying, if you fall in the jungle, you have to have your whistle, you have to fire your flare, you have to do this and that and that. And this guy kept telling him about this jungle, and if you fall in the jungle, and he says, okay, we got it. If we fall in the jungle, what's the big deal? And the British officer said, you don't get it. the natives ate the last pilot that crash land in the jungle. They're cannibals. So make sure you blow that whistle. So he said, okay, I'll blow the whistle. I'll try not to crash land in the jungle. So these people were trained, and they were in the Middle East. Interestingly enough, the motto of the Greek Air Force, always fly high, was first heard on the Gaza Strip. So in the Gaza, where they have all these problems now with Israel and the Palestinians, that's where there was a British base where Greeks were being serving. And the first time that somebody actually mentioned that was here. And I think that Nikos Alexiou has something to say about Mr. Pisanos. Do you want me to play the video first, Nico, or do you want to say something first? Okay, let's play the first video.
The ceremony I attended for my naturalization on the 3rd of May 1943 was a tremendous event. There must have been over 200 people at this auditorium. The gentleman who came specially from Washington to naturalize me, and some 4 or 5 other youngsters who were serving in the Air Force, and they were not Americans. Dr. Henry Hazard was his name. But in the attendance, we had Walter Cronkite, Ed Morrow, and Andy Rudy, and plus English people and newspapermen and war correspondents and generals and admirals. Anyway, it was really an event I have never forgotten. And I'm proud that, I was able to become an American that day. And I had an Englishman who came to me, approached me after the ceremony. I think he was from the London Times. And he said, "Hey, Lieutenant, how do you feel now that you have become a Yankee in British soil?" And I told the gentleman it was tremendous, tremendous. To take some 100 close B-24s to bomb 2 aerodromes that the Germans were using with J-288s, flying out in the Atlantic Ocean and bombed the convoys. It was there where we jumped by a bunch of MD-109s and FW-190s. We got into a fight. I sat down 2 at the beginning, and then I sat down 2 more. But then on the way back, I was over Le Mans, France, and my engine began to lock funny. So by the time I got over the house, my engine fleet, I gave Mayday, of course, and no one could help me. And I didn't want to penetrate Le Havre and get into the English Channel because the Germans had already begun to fire at me. So I decided to turn back and try to bail out south of Le Havre, approximately 20 kilometers. And I was unable to leave the aircraft. I had forgotten to connect my cord from the dinghy I was sitting on it to my main west. And evidently the plug at the end of the cord must have gotten somewhere below the seat in the aircraft, in the cabin. And as I stood up, I noticed the plug was holding me. So I decided to get back in the cockpit. This is about 2,000 feet. I decided to get back in the cockpit, sit down, and try to unplug that plug there. So I played around with it, finally came loose, and I connected it to the main west. Then I stood up again, and I tried to get on the left-hand side of the aircraft there, and I was just about to slide down and pull my D-ring when I looked to my left, and I could see cows all over the countryside. I knew I was too low to really leave the aircraft, and I decided to stay right there, and that's where I crash landed, and I was thrown away from the aircraft with a dislocated shoulder. I was thrown away from the aircraft in the air, tumbling, and bang, I passed out for a while. How long I stood there, I don't know, but it was for some time. When I got up and I opened my eyes, I had a tremendous pain on my left side here. I thought I was bleeding, and there was no blood, but evidently my arm had come off its socket there. First thing I said, thank God I'm alive. I couldn't believe that I was alive. Looked at my aircraft, crashed up there, and of course they had really told us the first thing that you have to do is just put fire on the aircraft and get away from the area. So as I tried to light my matches there from the escape key to put fire, in my wet scarf. Two German soldiers were approaching me and with their automatic firing. And I said to myself, my God, they tried to scare me.
So, Nick, do you want to say something about Pisano? I mean, and your project? I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. I want you to pay attention to this one, the VOA. Do you know what it is? VOA. It's the Voice of America. The Voice of America, which used to be a very important source of news, information, etc. It was established in 1942. Worldwide, in all languages, in all countries. And it was the first act that President Trump did to close it. He's off the air. Of course, the Greek section was closed already since 2014. Right. And I'm very lucky and glad, after a lot of trials and demands, that at Queen's College and at the Hellenic American Project, the Center for the Greek American Diaspora Research Center, we have the Voice of America. So this is from our archives, and I'm glad to share it with you, because this is not only a Greek story. It can never be only a Greek story. It's also, is of course a Greek American story, but is also an American story, the contribution of those young men that came from other lands and contributed the most. So that was one reason why I'm here today, to show something that we have in our archives. And you're all invited to come and visit us and see our archives. We have a physical space at Queen's College. Of course, like you, I came for the t-shirts. This is very important. Make sure that you get one. I don't know how many extra large you have, but we need them. And the other reason is because among the person who organized that is this dynamic and energetic person, and you cannot say no to him. I mean, and I had my, I was skeptical in the beginning, but when he starts talking, then you cannot say no. Of course, I served in the Air Force, in the Greek Air Force. At that time, it was 26 months. I mean, and for a year and a half, I thought it was a waste of my life. I served in Tripoli, in Larissa, and then Monada Epithemiton, the unwanted, in Iraq, all the way up in Limnos. And then, with a typo, they brought me to the Hellenico in Athens. And then I never wanted to leave the army, because it was like holiday there after all this. Yeah. And also, I'm very thankful to the people who are involved. Jerry, the guy with the crazy hair outside, he's a great researcher, a student of mine, like other people. Mr. Columbus here, a brilliant researcher. And I'm very thankful to Yanni, who is he's a videographer and many other things, but he's a supporter of HAP and part of HAP doing the oral history interviews. And we're glad to see so many friends here. So this guy, I mean, I don't know. You got to do something with this hair, man. I don't know. He's a rock and roller, probably. That's not. So Spiros Nicholas Pisanos was born in Metaxourgio, Athens, in 1919. A period and a neighborhood that produced generations of people with vigor, imagination, and social ambitions that transcended the narrow confines of everyday life. A very tough neighborhood. Hell's Kitchen, right? His story is an example of how personal will interacts with social structures and the dominant narrative of the time. So let's see from sociological point of view a few things. The social boundaries and class mobility. As a child of a working class family with many children, Pisanos experienced firsthand the limitations of expectations, the lack of life chances, as we call it, and the powerful influence of the family traditions on his choices for career. his determination to follow a path, his own path, influenced by a chance, an event, a military plane flying across Athens, and he saw it, and then he got, when he was 9, 10 years old, he got, amazed, and that was his dream. And now, this is how it started. So, migration and adaptation from Athens to New York. Pisanos' migration happened in 1938. Greece still was under the Metaxas dictatorship, right? So it was difficult for many young men. He left. He became a sailor first. He went to Europe with a boat, came to America, and then he jumped ship. And here he is in America. Without linguistic or financial resources, but inspired by social networks and community practices, that was important. I want to stress out how important it was for many Greeks at the time, and I hope that the community still does this, the existence of the established Greek American communities to help newcomers, young people like Pisanos at that time. So when your support to community events is extremely important because it gives some kind of continuity to what community institutions, community-based institutions can do. And this is extremely important for the future of Greek American community in the 21st century. So cultural integration and national identity. So the experience of World War II elevated Pisanos to a social and symbolic level. From the RAF, the British Air Force that he also served there, to the United States Air Force. He became a living example of an immigrant contributing to the building in this homeland and to its institutions through his military service. It is characteristic that he was granted American citizenship, as he said, because of these great contributions. Collectivity, resistance, and bonds. Participation in the French resistance brings to the fore the dimension of collective action, the redefinition of national identities, and the transnational character of solidarity, of networks in times of crisis. His honorary appointment as a Knight of the Legion of Honor is a social recognition of the complexity of the modern mobile subject and the air forces. Return memory and legacy. After the war, Pisanos returned to America as a hero and embodied the model of post-war social integration through work, family, their broken connection with the Greek community in America and the diaspora here. His life until the end, he died at the age of 96, right? Confirms the importance of collective memory and international integration, social integration. I think this is important to remember that we can only survive in a very collective way. As a last statement, I think that the heroic actions of all these people is an example to demonstrate how social identities are forged, contested, and rewritten at the crossroads of history. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor Alexiou makes it look easy to talk.
All this is...
I have a lot of tricks. I have lots of slides to show. That's how I keep it interesting. He can make it interesting just with one slide. I just wanted to say that after the war, everybody else was rebuilding their countries. Greece went into a civil war. So then the Air Force participated in that civil war. At first, they didn't want to fight. The aviators that were World War II veterans, they said it's not fair. The other side doesn't have an Air Force. And it was really easy to bomb the communist guerrillas in the Civil War. But that didn't last long. And for the first time, we have the use of napalm on the European continent. So they would drop napalm bombs on the communists in Gramos and Vitsi. That did happen. And now, we after World War II, we get into the modern era of aviation. So these are not like aviation charts. So this is what an aviation map looks like. Aviators use special maps that have different indications on there. It shows you where the airports are, of course, and what the control zones are and what the heights are. So this is kind of like what a map of Greece looks like with the different terminal areas. Okay, so the different terminal areas you have to, when you go, you have to have reporting points when you go into a different area. This is pretty much standard worldwide. Aviation is very rule and procedure driven. You've all seen the lines on the airstrips when you go to land. What does that mean? That's just part of the compass. So the runway orientation, it helps the pilot line up. So when you see 17, it really means 170 degrees. So I have a picture for you here. If it says 1735, this is exactly the, this is the aerodrome of Kerkira. So Kerkira has 1735. So when you line up your compass, you can go and land there. So these are not arbitrary numbers. That's what I'm trying to say. So when the airport tells you that 35 is in use, it means you have to go and land on that side because the prevalent wind is in that direction, or for some other reason they want you to land that way. So maybe you learned something now about, you're going to learn a few things about your own flights in this presentation. So now after the war, we have the first generation. This is very important because when you talk about aviation in the modern times, they say, what generation this aircraft? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth generation, fourth generation. What do we mean? These were the airplanes that Greece got on the first generation jets. This is what they looked like. And of course, immediately after the Civil War, we had a Greek expeditionary force that went to Korea, and we did participate with airplanes as well, mostly transport airplanes. This is a picture of the Greek contingency in Korea. And then they made Archangel Michael the patron saint of the Air Force. This happened in 1954, and the first celebration was in 1955, and that's why now in 2025 we celebrate the 70 years, right? The first celebration took place in 1955. So why did they pick Michael? Michael is great, okay, because he's an angel, he flies, he leads other angels, and he holds the burning sword to cut down the enemies. He's the one that actually fought the battle between good and evil with the devil, and that's why they picked him. And I think he's a great pick. Okay, and he's also in the Apocalypse of John. This is the Athens FIR. FIR stands for Flight Information Region. So what you see here, this is important because this is not national airspace. Okay, so this is Athena FIR. So all the space here is where Athens gives information. What does that mean? They control the airspace, they control search and rescue, but it's not national airspace. So when they say that the Turks are violating Athena FIR, it means that they are entering this airspace here, and they're not filing a flight plan. Now, military aircraft in general don't file flight plans, neither do the Americans or anybody else for that reason. But especially for us, we said our rule is you have to file a flight plan. If you don't file a flight plan, we will intercept you. So this has been going on. I'll talk more about that in a second. In the 1950s and 65, we have the next generation of the Greek airplanes. This is what it looks like. Alpha 7 Corsair, the F-86, F-5s, okay? All these are American aircraft for the most part. Greece joined NATO, as you know, and now we're tied into the American arsenal. The third generation airplanes, the most significant here, I mean, the Starfighter was a great plane for American aerodromes, but in Greece they didn't have a lot of success. It needs a lot of runway. The Greeks used to call them the flying coffins, because it has a very small wingspan, and what happened was you have to come in really hot to land this thing. You need a lot of speed. They came in slowly, and the thing fell out of the sky, and they had accidents. And then again in 1974, we have the Cypriot incident. The Air Force could play a great role to help Cyprus in the invasion, but it didn't. This is a presentation by itself. I can talk 2 hours about the war in Cyprus. I have 300 and something slides. What I can tell you is that...
As my first cousin was Petros, this affair, he was told to turn back or be shot out of the sky.
Exactly. So what happened was they sent first Nor-Atlas planes. I mean, that's what ended up happening. But first they thought about sending Boeing 707s. This is not well known. So what happened was Olympic Airways was commandeered, and they made 2 fighting squadrons. They called them the 357 and the 358. And they wanted to send special forces from Thessaloniki to Cyprus. So what they did was they sent 707, 3 of them, 3, 4 707s, to Thessaloniki to transport commandos. But instead of flying them from Thessaloniki to Cyprus, they said we're going to fly from Thessaloniki to Crete to refuel and regroup and then fly to Cyprus. These are airplanes that can fly Athens to New York. Okay? So the 707 did not need to refuel. I believe they did it because they wanted to gradual do the operation.
Exactly so.
But what ended up happening was this. You know, when you load an airplane, it's a science. It's something called weight and balance. You can't just put stuff in the airplane and put it wherever you want. You have to load certain weight in certain areas, so when the airplane takes off, it's balanced. What they did was, first they had the military load the planes. They loaded the planes up as high as they could. The pilots came and they saw the tires that were ready to burst. They said, how much weight have you put in here? And the military said, we don't know. And they said, the military doesn't load planes. The Air Force loads planes. You need scales. You need to load this plane properly. And the other thing that they did was, so they had to unload the planes and load them again. And the other thing they did was, the most important thing for Cyprus was anti-tank weapons and ammunition. So they put all of these in one plane. So they did disperse ammunition and personnel throughout the 3 planes, but the most important, they didn't disperse. So if you think about this from a tactical perspective, if you lose this plane, right, the whole mission, I mean, the most important equipment will not get there. And guess what happened? They go to Souda in Crete, and they're ready to take off, and the plane with the heavy equipment had an accident. Okay, so what happened was the crew there was not familiar with 707s. They were familiar with smaller aircraft, and what they did was they pulled the chokes under the wheels before the pilot could start the engine. The plane rolled back, and there was an accident. It couldn't take off, and of course they needed to take off all the heavy equipment and distribute it to the other planes, and there was no time. And by then, the war was pretty much over, and they decided not to do it. The other thing that happened in Greece was they revoked the orders for the F-84s. So the F-84Fs, these planes were the older generation planes. If they went all the way to Cyprus, they would bomb and attack the Turkish invading force, but they didn't have enough fuel to come back. So it was a one-way mission. They would have to ditch the planes, and they decided not to do that. The question was, why didn't they send in the F-4 Phantoms? The Phantoms had 24 bombs. The Turkish planes had 2 bombs each. The Phantoms were brand new, but they were not 100% operational. The Phantom pilot said, no, if we got the order, we would go. So they did reach Crete when they were dispersed, and then there was an accident in Crete as well, and it didn't fly all the way to Cyprus. As I said, I can talk about this for many hours. I have a very detailed presentation. This is like a response from the Phantom pilots. They said, no, we were ready to go. If they told us, we would attack the Turks and we would have stopped the invasion. They did send the Nor-Atlas, Operation Victory. We know how that ended up. A lot of the special forces got shot down. Some of the heavy equipment made it over. I think it was too little, too late. And the last Nor-Atlas was found as early as 2015, 10 years ago, in Cyprus. So there's a whole presentation about this. At the time, if you see here the map, Turkey has the advantage at Cyprus because it's so close that you can refuel and attack Cyprus and go back, whereas from Greece, it was a longer distance. That's why Crete is the closest, and that's why they sent the planes to Crete, because from Crete they could make the leap over to Cyprus. So as I told you earlier, Turkey refused to file flight plans with the Athens FIR, and that's why we have all these issues with our pilots. Let's see this quick video here.
Είναι πάγια τακτική των Τούρκων να μην καταθέτουν συγκεκριτήσεις όταν υπερέχονται του ελληνικού εναερίου χώρου. Αλλά και κατά πάγια τακτική δική μας, οφείλουμε να είμαστε πάντα μπροστά και αν χρειαστεί και πίσω από οποιοδήποτε τουρκικό αεροσκάφος προκειμένου να αντιμετωπίσουμε το συγκεκριμένο ίχνος.
So what he's saying is that, you know, they don't file flight plans, we go out to intercept them. So they're playing a game of cat and mouse. They're playing a game of chicken with the Turks. And this is a little video here, just to show you how, you know, extreme the situation can become.
Η κάμερα καταγράφει τις στιγμές έντασης, περίπου 6.000 πόδια πάνω από το Αιγαίο. Ο φακός του F-16 γίνεται αδιάψευτος μάρτυρας της προκλητικότητας των Τούρκων, που κάνουν συνεχείς και επικίνδυνους ελιγμούς.
Okay, so then we go into fourth generation. So this is like today. So fourth generation airplanes are the F-16s and the Mirage 2000s. And what happened was in 1977, they built a factory in Tanagra, Schimatari, EAV. This is a factory where, this is the only place that I know on the planet where Lockheed Martin has all 4 factories you need to build an F-16 in one place. In the United States, you have to go from state to state. So avionics is in one state, engines is somewhere else. So here, electronics is somewhere else. Here, it's under one roof. And I'll tell you something else about Tanagra. I've been there twice with my students from the university, and they're very good in what sense? They are a training center for Greece and for the Middle East, because Greeks can train people from the Middle East much easier than Americans can. So they send us their mechanics, they send us their engineers, they send us their pilots. It's easier for us because we're close with them, and they will sort of, you know, communicate better. The American will take out the manuals, will, you know, so there's a disassociation. We are truly the bridge between East and West when it comes to this. So we have people from Saudi Arabia, people from all over the world, but mostly the Middle East. So this is another picture from EAV. I'll talk to you a little bit about aviation medicine. So not anybody can become a pilot, and you have to be in excellent health, and they look for sudden incapacity or latent incapacity. So all pilots go through a lot of tests because they don't want your pilot to pass out or die while he's on, you know, en route somewhere. So that's the main thing they look for aviation medicine. Now, if you look at the fighter pilots, they all wear masks. So you need oxygen when you're flying because of the danger of hypoxia. So I'm going to show you a little video here. This is from Σχολή Ικάρων. So basically what happens is when you get hypoxic, you don't realize it. There's a moment of euphoria, and you think that all is going well. And I'm going to show you a British video. It's kind of scary, where they put a reporter in this barometric chamber, and they have a doctor standing by and everything, and they give him a little puzzle. Watch this. I mean, and this also affects us because when we fly, we have those masks. I'll tell you what happens. When an airplane flies, let's say you're at 33,000 feet, right? So you're at 33,000 feet, but inside the cockpit, it's pressurized to 10,000 feet. So that's the best they can do. So if the pressure drops, the masks drop, you have to pull the mask to activate it, and they have a system that actually makes oxygen, and that only lasts for 15 minutes. That's all they have. The reason why they do this is they want to give you enough oxygen until the plane descends to 10,000 feet where you can actually breathe. So 10,000 feet is the limit. Now for some people, your doctor might say, don't fly, right? Because you can't take 10,000 feet. For some reason you may be sick or you may be weak or sick or whatever. So you might get hypoxic. And I'm going to show you this little video here. This is a video that shows the masks falling.
Oxygen mask, drop down. Here's what you need to know and do.
Which you know all that. But watch this nice video. It shows you this person becoming hypoxic and not even realizing. So this is a great, great video. And I show it when I teach aviation courses, and they really freaks them out.
This is a risky experiment, as unconsciousness can occur quite suddenly.
That was a sudden change.
This is what we call rapid. Just recover.
Τελειώνω σε 2 λεπτά.
Physiologist Dr. Hans Wittenberg is monitoring Michael's condition by asking him to complete basic tasks.
Can you show me by sticking up your fingers how much 9 minus 5 is?
9 minus 5 would be 4.
Excellent. How's this?
That's the 80 cut.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Michael's brain is suffering from oxygen starvation, making him feel drunk, euphoric, and overconfident.
Can you hold this up for me?
I can hold it up, yeah.
And can you do the shape of it as well?
Alright, I'm looking for I can't see that one.
It's here. It's it. It's it.
Okay.
Excellent. You can't card this.
It's the 3 of diamonds.
3 diamonds?
Yeah.
You got no shape to do. Can you put it in?
Yes, it's the star. Yes.
He can't find it.
Michael will eventually face an ultimate test. Will he be able to switch his oxygen back on and save his life?
He doesn't know he's
Or
dying.
will he be too far gone to care?
How much is 8 minus 3?
8 minus 3 is 4.
Is it 4?
8 minus 3. 8 minus 3 is...
Michael is dangerously hypoxic.
Okay. When you get back to recover, Michael, can you put up the switches? 6 minutes. Put up the switches. We will die. Just swing the mask back on.
He's experiencing what appears to be the perfect method of execution, and he doesn't care.
Put up the switches. We will die. Put up the switches. Can you tell me how you feel now? How do you feel?
I feel much better.
Very good. How much is 8 minus 3?
5, definitely 5. Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you. Michael.
Where are we now, Captain?
Well, actually, we're descending now to sea level again. We are at 26,000 feet.
How much longer until I would be unconscious?
Well, a matter of seconds. I guess 10 to 20 seconds, and then...
And from there to death?
Yes, your final destination then.
If Hans hadn't stepped in then,
He saved your life today.
okay.
Be very thankful. Thank you. But overall, Michael, was it painful?
I thought the experiment was a failure because I was getting all the answers right. Did I get all the answers right?
In the end, no.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought I was doing really well. I thought I'd outwitted you.
I certainly felt self-confident. Obviously I did, and that's evidently one of the symptoms of hypoxia. But I had no idea that I was near death. And I was just, yeah, I was very happy, very happy. Hell of a way to go. Hell of a way to go.
I've done this actually, and I can tell you that one breath makes a huge different. It's like you're choking and you have no air. So you have this tunnel vision and you can't think. And I took one breath and it's like a veil lifted. So this is actually, I've actually done this, what you just saw. So it's quite amazing. I cannot describe you the feeling, I don't say you should do it, but I'm saying, but this actually happened to a lot of people. And when did it happen? With the Ilios flight. So a commercial flight from Cyprus took off, and by mistake, the cabin did not pressurize, and everybody fainted on board, including the pilots. So what happened was,
Air Force scrambles two of its most sophisticated fighter jets to investigate the Helios plane. But the pilots aren't getting any response. One of the jets flies closer to the cockpit. Someone is in the co-pilot's seat, slumped over the controls. But there's no sign of the captain at all. The fighter pilot radios air traffic control in Athens.
After the ACC, there's one figure in the cockpit of Helios 522. If he is not responsive, after the ACC, taking the care.
He can see passengers in their seats, but none of them reacts to the presence of the jet.
so what happened was they forgot to turn the pressurization to auto. So it has on, manual, off, on, manual, or auto, and it was left on off. So as they were descending, the alarm went off, the masks dropped, and the pilots were supposed to put on their masks. They disregarded and they tried to see what the problem was, and they kept ascending, and then they became hypoxic. And they became like Michael in the previous experiment. And of course, what happened was the Greek Air Force followed them. They didn't know if it was a hijacking. They didn't know if it was a terrorist attack. The plane went into autopilot over Athens. It circled and circled, and then it ran out of fuel, and it struck Grammatiko Mountain. Do you remember this? Yeah. And there's actually an amazing audio of the Greek pilot. I don't know if you've heard it. It's quite shocking. I'm going to play the last parts. You're gonna. You hear the altitude warning from the F-16. It says altitude, because he's following the jet down. Mayday. So it's quite dramatic. So there was the crash, and if you heard the pilot, he said Mambo. Mambo is one of the two radars that Greece has. Greece has two eyes, Mambo and Joker. Mambo is in Parnitha in Athens. Joker is in Thessaloniki. So you have two great big radar systems. And that's why he says Mambo. Mambo. That's the code name for the radar. This is what was left of the plane, and. When you hear the dogfights in the Aegean, and I'm almost done, is when you can hear the pilots actually breathing through their masks. Listen to this one here. This is from a Mirage 2000.
Δύο ελληνικά Mirage 2000 καταδιώκουν ζευγάρι τουρκικών F-16. Το βίντεο ντοκουμέντο από το πιλωτήριο του ελληνικού Mirage δείχνει πως ο Τούρκος χειριστής ευνηδιάζεται. Καταλαβαίνει ότι βρίσκεται σε μειονεκτική θέση. Προσπαθεί να αντιδράσει. Βρίσκεται συνεχώς σε θέση βολής από τον Έλληνα πιλότο. Πραγματοποιεί μια απότομη άνοδο με στροφή δεξιά Πολοντζή.
So today, what has happened is we have gotten the Rafale airplanes. These are the 4.5 or 5th generation planes. Some say 4.5, some say 5th. And the F-16s have been updated to the Viper style. So the Viper, not all of them. The Viper, if you want to see, there's an easy way to tell if the F-16 is a Viper or not. It has the extra fuel tanks on the side. So this is like one way to know that this is the updated version. We do this in AV. This is the update that the Turks have not gotten yet through Congress. So they want to get fifth generation fighters. The F-35s, they're not getting them because Congress has blocked them. And the Vipers are also off the table. So just to show you where the wings are, Greece has these fighting wings, 110, 111, 114, 116, 117. And this is the 337 Squadron, 390 Squadron, 330. These are all the squadrons of the Greek Air Force. So you see where all the squadrons are and what kind of airplanes they have. Up here they have UAVs, Pegasus 1, 2, and Heron. The Vipers are in 111, this is in Larissa, and they're also in Crete, 115. So our best planes are here and here, and in 114, Tanagra, this is where the Rafales are. So our best airplanes are here, and these are all our combat wings. The Vipers, by the way, are now built in India as well. So India has a special program. In the United States, they're only going to build 100, and India is going to build all the other ones. So we keep having dogfights. So this is what the Greek Air Force looks like now. You have 4.5 generation planes, which is the Rafale and the Vipers. The French say that the Viper is not really a 4.5 and ours is a 5, generation 5. The Americans say that this is not a generation 5 like the F-35, but our F-16 Vipers, Block 72, are indeed 4.5. So we have fourth generation planes here, the rest of our F-16 fleet, and we have Mirage 2000s. And we have the old Phantoms that they're trying to get out of the arsenal for now. They're third generation, and they're really, really aging aircraft.
I think the Block 30 is third generation.
All the F-16s came out in 1977. That's when AV was built. So Block 30, it could be considered a third generation, but we have very few of them now. They're going to update everything. I spoke to an AV person 2 days ago just to be up to date. This number was 38, now it's 44. And he said that they're going to get all of the Block 30s really soon. So we have 635 airplanes of all kinds, 178 are fighters, 42,000 personnel. Greece is the fourth largest air force in Europe. So after Russia, France, and Turkey, you have Greece. And because Turkey has dated now aircrafts, we're ahead of Turkey when it comes to firepower with the Rafales. And I'm going to show you a slide from my old presentation about the Greek Revolution. I talked about the Charta of Rigas and how Rigas Velestinlis wanted Greece to be the dominant Balkan state in a Balkan federation. If you look at the map where the Greek Air Force flies today, it pretty much matches the Charta of Rigas. So the Greek Air Force defends all these countries here. Okay, we have patrol duties and Bulgaria, and now they're actually thinking about Romania as well. So these countries are neighbors, Montenegro, Albania, Northern Macedonia, and Bulgaria. These are countries that we were enemies with. Now they trust us to the point where we have permission and they expect us to fly over their border and protect them. So the Charta of Rigas is actually the map of where the Greek Air Force flies. Any questions? Petro? Are you ready? Okay.
How many Rafales does Greece have or plans to buy?
Let me tell you the exact number. It says it here.
18, 19, 16, 18.
24.
24?
Yes. So we have 24 Rafales. Now, I'll tell you something else. Have you heard of the S-300s and the scandal with Cyprus? So Cyprus buys the S-300s, which is an anti-aircraft system. Turkey complains. Greece takes it and we put it into storage. We're not using it. Turkish fighters fly towards Greece to do a little mission, and the Rafales for the first time take off and they open their radar. The Turks are locked all the way down, and they panic, and they think that we've activated the S-300. So they go back and they say the Greeks have broken their promise, and they activated the we were locked the minute we took off. It wasn't the S-300. It was the Rafales that could lock on the Turkish fighters over Tanagra. The moment they took off, they opened their radars, and the fighters got painted. So the Turks were very, disheartened, because the minute they take off, they know that with the push of the button, they're gone. So that's what makes the difference with the Rafales.
How come we don't have stealth?
What's that?
Stealth.
The Rafales are 4.5 generation. They have special paint. And what they do with the Vipers as well, they paint them with special paint, and they change the outside up to a point, and the electronics, and their signature is very, very low. To give you an understanding, a 5th generation fighter, you're not fighting the plane, you're fighting a system. So back in the day, there were 3 of you and 2 of them or 4 of them and whatever, and there was a dogfight. That's not the case anymore. You're flying your plane, you see the other plane, and then you're fighting the whole system. The F-35, it's part of a network.
So when you paint using radar, do you become visible?
What's that?
When you paint the enemy plane using a radar, do you become visible?
Yes.
You become visible?
Yes. It's an active radar.
Okay.
It's an active radar.
So then using that, can't
Yes, but what happened is Greece bought these weapons, these planes, with weapons like Meteor anti-air missiles. Okay. So we can fire before they can. Okay. So not only we can see them, we can bring them down. So this is very humbling for Turkey. Turkey's in trouble because the Air Force was part of the coup against Erdogan, so he doesn't trust the Air Force to begin with. So there was purges and purges and purges of their officers, and now they're in trouble. Now they're in trouble because the Americans are not giving them, they cannot update the Viper, they're not getting the F-35s, and they are thinking of getting the Eurofighter, but by the time that happens, they're behind. They're behind. Yes, Nico.
How much cost to the Greek people?
The Greeks pay for defense 4.5. We are the highest in Europe for defense. So we're the only ones that Donald is happy with. Everybody else, they have to pay more. And the joke with Germans was this. They were telling Germany that you have to rearm and you have to be ready for the Russians. And the Germans said, jokingly, so you want us to build tanks and march through Ukraine and attack Russia? Are you sure about this? Because we've done this before. It didn't work so well. So, but that's where we stand right now.
But now with the new NATO agreement that all countries they have to build up the military.
Yes.
Rightfully so. Do you think that will affect severely or less what we call so far the welfare state?
It's
Greece, it was a disaster, but for the other guys.
exactly. It's an ancient debate. Cannons or butter. So what do you want to do? So, and the other answer is, of course, that safety comes first. So if you're not safe, in this country, we're very happy because safety is taken for granted. I mean, who's going to attack the United States, honestly, right? So this is a country that has never been invaded, with the exception of one, Pancho Villa, invaded the United States briefly. Okay, so in Greece, when you take off in a fighter jet, and if you sneeze, Greece is over. I mean, you take off and it's done, right? It's a very small country. So Greece always, we live in a state of threat. And we don't have Switzerland as our neighbor, or Liechtenstein. Our neighbors are different, right? And as I said in my old presentation, in the 26th of October, Italy was not a friend. I mean, we paint the Italians with nice colors today, and we say, oh, it was the fascists, Mussolini. Up until World War II, Italy was a threat for Greece. The Dodecanese, the Eftanisa, the Asia Minor, they took over. We had these great problems with Italy, and it was Mussolini independent, these problems. After the war, different story. But up until then, we had an issue with Italy, even more than Turkey.
Is there any truth to what some people say that Greek Air Force is the only professional wing of the Greek armed forces, rest are like job creation programs? Not true.
Well, the Air Force in every military is the cutting edge. Because, Petros, όταν είσαι έτοιμος ξεκινάς. Okay. So I want to give it over to Petros.
Set up behind you.
Okay.
While you're taking questions.
Okay.
Let me just plug this and make sure this works.
Είσαι εδώ.
What is this? Once this produces picture, can I? So where does this go? Okay. Who is it? Your dog? Okay.
Αυτό έχει το ισορεύμα. Ωραία.
Actually, θα πάρω έχω πιο μεγάλο. Για να μην χρειαστεί να είναι εδώ πάνω αυτό.
Sorry, what was the question? I'm helping Petros set up at the same time. Yes.
I have a question. I just wanted to say a few things. In '74, Greece was 7-3 towards Turkey in the sky. Even today, there is no conceivable way that the Turks can win. We are in the triptych amongst the finest fighter pilots in the world: America, Greece, Israel. As far as I'm concerned.
And what happens is, Israel is in a combat situation all the time. And Greece is also always practicing with dogfights. So the dogfights are good practice, but it's also deadly. People have died, and people die often. And actually, there's some discussions about creating an organization to help the families of the dead aviators.
What is the life, how long they live, if you compare it to the other military?
I'm not familiar with that statistic.
My cousin who's, I'm 78, Thodoros is a Pteros, and he's 6 months older than me.
Τι βλέπεις?
I would just tell you that he flew F-4Fs amongst other planes.
Πίσω βέβαια.
Just told him turn back and be shot down during the insubordination. We went into firefighting with our firefighting, and then he went into the private sector firefighting. And if you call him up in the middle of the night, we'll say, Thodo, are you ready to go? I'm good to go. That's patriotis.
No.
As I request, although I'm a
Δεν ανάβει αυτό. Is this plugged in?
I don't know that part. Does it have a light and indicator?
Δεν την ανάβει. Σαν να μπαίνει ρεύμα. Θέλω να το βάλεις εδώ, σαν D.
If I have to.
Βάλ' το εδώ.
Okay, και από πού θα πάρω sound από εδώ?
Είναι ήδη κουμπωμένο.
Είναι ήδη κάτω. Okay. Έχεις PowerPoint?
Ναι.
Okay, let's open. Έχεις USB-C για να είναι πιο γρήγορο.
Ναι.
Okay. Δεν βλέπω στα μαύρα. Right. So open the presentation on your PowerPoint. Καλησπέρα.
Μίλα τους λιγάκι, να δούμε.
Connecting this. I just have, my name is Petros Hatjopoulos. I am a musician. I teach music and education and multimedia. This invitation to participate in this evening's festivities came very recently for me, like about a couple of weeks ago, and I was up to my nose working. Is this my? Yes. Finish your.
I'm done. I'm done. Yes.
Okay, do I have audio?
Yes.
Do I?
Yes.
How do I advance this?
Πάτα το space bar.
Space bar. And how do I go back with the
Με το back arrow. Με το back arrow.
Okay.
Θα σε βγάλω και φωτογραφία.
Ωραία. Okay, so I just wanted to say that I was excited to be part of this. Awesomeness that the previous part of the evening was. So I'm here to talk about something that is fascinating to me, and it's the dream of flight. And it will become clear where I'm going with this as I go. I just didn't have the time to prepare it like I would like to, and hopefully I'll have a chance to finish this one day before I'm too old. So since the beginning of human imagination, we have looked to the sky and wondered, what if we could rise above the earth? What if we could slip gravity's grasp and join the birds, the gods, the stars? The dream of flight is not just an engineering ambition. So this is where we come into my part. It is one of the deepest metaphors for freedom, transcendence, and the human spirit. The dream of tonight will trace how that dream has inspired music, how composers from the ancient myths. Okay, I got it. How do I turn this down? If it's too loud, I mean, it's not too loud, right?
No, it's fine, it's good.
Okay, got it. How composers from the ancient myths of Icarus to the soundtracks of space travel have given sound to the act of flying. This is Debussy's Clouds, Nuage, and this is Leopold Stokowski with the Philadelphia Symphony Orchestra. This recording is from 1964. We are beginning this journey with Icarus and Daedalus. You know the story because you probably, this is Astoria and people here know these things. In Greek myth, Daedalus builds wings of wax and feathers for himself and his son Icarus. Icarus soars too close to the sun, the wax melts and he falls. This is the first story of flight as both triumph and tragedy, freedom and hubris intertwined. This is our own Theodore Koumardzis. This is a work of his for the lyre. He imagined the sound of what Greek music might have sounded like in ancient times. We only have this information because there's no recording, there's no music notation that is clear, but from musical instruments that were retrieved and from depictions or actual musical instruments, and we can imagine what things might have sounded like. So he composed this piece in 2020, and it's called, what is it called? Icarus 2020, right? So he's playing it on this lyre. So back, we continue with this same story of Icarus and Daedalus, and now a contemporary composer. He's actually in his 30s, and he writes music for video games, of all things. I have a huge appreciation for this guy. He's an Asian American composer. His name is Christopher Tin. He captures the duality in of this tragedy and freedom in his choral work, Daedalus and Icarus. Listen to this music lift, the rising voices and shimmering harmonies. The text is there. I cut this, chopped it up. It's a 20-minute work, but only a couple of minutes so you get an idea. So the choir sings All You Need to Know, right? So they build it, and he ascends, and his father says, don't fly too close to the sun because the wax will melt and you'll fall. Don't fly too close to the ocean because the wings will get heavy and wet and you will never be able to gain high altitude. So he ascends.
So he flies over Samos. And you hear the dissonant music as he's struggling with, this effort to fly higher and higher until he actually gets to the point where he will start to fall. You will hear this in the music. The power of this myth is not just because it was the dream of flight in ancient times, it's because it already contains every future story of flight, the ecstasy, the danger, the yearning to transcend limits, all in one story, right? Very powerful. If you didn't know about this composer, Christopher Tin, and his music, I strongly recommend you look him up, Christopher Tin, as in tin, like the T-I-N. He has written some beautiful music. We'll end this presentation with another piece of his. I was very excited to have met him. So you hear the tragedy here, and I will proceed. So what comes after that? It took 15 centuries. Well, in my story, it takes 15. I don't know what happened in maybe the southern hemisphere, but in the context of like our Western, civilization, Western musical tradition and history. It took 15 centuries. Leonardo da Vinci, right? He turned the dream into design. So we go into engineering and we actually we believe that this could actually be possible, that we could fly one day. He studied birds. He studied air currents, the anatomy of wings, and drew flying machines powered by human strength. But Leonardo's genius was also torment. He could imagine flight, but he would never live to see it. So Eric Whittaker, in this medieval piece for choir, he describes this. This is called the flying machine, and he portrays that fevered mind and the insomnia of invention, the alternating terror and exaltation of inspiration. Listen for the mechanical rhythms when we get to it. Play. There we go. So this, again, I chopped it up. I'm sorry I'm doing this to some beautiful music, but I only have a couple of minutes for each example. They sing here about this internal fight. So he wanted to make this happen. He could see that his design could fly the tournament, and he didn't have the actual physical means to produce these things into something that could actually, right? So this is a wonderful choir here, sings, and at some point you will hear how they will pick up instruments. They will pick up instruments and they will try to imitate those mechanical sounds of those perceived physical designs that would click and clack with their wings, and they would hopefully take off one day. You start hearing the gears. So he closes his eyes and he's imagining his machine flying for the first time. Whitaker, the composer of this piece, shows us that before flight was physical, before flight was possible, it was psychological, a creative act of faith. People believed that they could fly one day. And we get to the modern stuff. Of course, no musical depiction of flight is more iconic or more thunderous than Richard Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. We all know this. It's in commercials, it's been in movies, it's Apocalypse Now. In Norse mythology, the Valkyries were divine warrior maidens who soared over the battlefield, choosing which fallen heroes would ascend to Valhalla. Which ones would ascend? Wagner translates that vision into pure kinetic sound. The orchestra itself becomes the squadron of winged beings. Listen to the way the galloping triplets, I will demonstrate and I'll sing more than I will play the piano today to show you, create the sensation of rushing wind while the rising brass motif ascends again and again, never quite landing. In Wagner's music, people say, you go to the opera and it keeps going and going and going. It's like 4 hours later. And it used to be like in the 19th century, people would go and watch 3 of his operas in one day. Like that would be like, 12 hours. It's like the joke in New York is you go to a Wagner opera and you come out and you say, who's president, right? It's going to take forever. See, it's going and never landing. It is flight as ecstasy in his music, as power, divine, terrifying, and unstoppable. When later used by filmmakers, because he was the inspiration behind most of those soundtrack, American mostly, composers that wrote this sound of flight in the 20th century that we're very familiar with. Most famously, his music was used in Apocalypse Now, and it becomes a dark irony. The music of glory turned to the sound of mechanized war. But even then, Wagner's theme reminds us flight is always double-edged. Remember the sword, St. Michael and the sword? Both the dream of gods and the instrument of destruction. And so on. You know this piece. Now, it becomes reality.
This film, made in 1903, records the first flight of this primitive biplane making aviation history. As the two brothers prepare to attempt the first catastrophic takeoff, man's age-old dream of flight becomes a reality.
See, there's music behind it that was composed for this back then, which is funny because it sounds like flight. Is it sounding like flight, or were we trained to hear this and think, hey, we're flying here, right? So one or the other or both, right? I find this very fascinating. I studied film scoring at NYU back in the 90s, and I sat down with a couple of very important film composers, and they actually approached it as a joke. Like they would sit at the piano back before there was recording and audio in film, and they would just improvise by looking. So like you'd see all those Buster Keaton movies and Charlie Chaplin and all of that stuff, and somebody was at the piano or an organ improvising music for the silent film. What kind of talent that must have been, right? So 1903, it became actual, it became real. Humans for the first time flew. It reflected a new emotion, triumph over gravity, right? So it's now physics and philosophy and all of that stuff that starts with the PH, Greek words. Military and patriotic marches celebrated aviators as national heroes, the new Icaruses who would not fall. right? And this is, actually it was, I didn't know this piece until this gentleman here sent it to me. And it's actually kind of funny. I mean, it's a little out of place, but you will see. This is a march to inspire the people so that they're supportive of their National Air Force, right? So this is Yuli Kait's Aviators March. What is fascinating here is that this was written in 1911. So it's very early in the times of like National Air Forces, yet somebody felt the need to inspire the people to be supportive of their national heroes who would not fall, right? They, you know, bold brass, forward motion, rhythm like a propeller. This is the sound of flight as conquest. So, I'll fade this. I don't speak the language, but I'm sure it's saying wonderful things about people who fly. Right, so now the dream was no longer a metaphor, it was human achievement. But composers still use the sky to represent something more, aspiration itself. So for the next one, do you recognize this face, this side of the face? This is Evangelos Papathanasiou. This was not written for flight. I will actually do my colleague here a favor, and I will play something on the piano, but I will play with this guy. I'll let this begin. So this Chariots of Fire, you know this, you've seen the movie, definitely you've heard the soundtrack. And this is actually played by a large orchestra. It's usually the original recording was his synthesizers in the studio and all of that. This is even more majestic. You can find this on YouTube. It's fantastic. Is the piano in tune? I'll have to play this in C sharp. All right, so, or I'll just let it play. So even when people weren't literally flying, the feeling of flight, the weightless motion forward became a musical symbol for victory, for spiritual lift. In Chariots of Fire, Evangelos captures the feeling of human transcendence, slow motion, right? And you see those movies now, they make fun of it, like where they're like, you know, they're like slowly running. It's just to give this uplifting sense of like they're almost flying. Pulsing rhythm, the sense of rising beyond limits. The runner's feet in this movie never leave the ground, but in music they soar. This is the modern echo of Icarus, our longing to become more than human, to rise through struggle. Right? This piano is very out of tune, but you know. So that I can show off and you can see that I can really play. It's nothing, it's here, right? Moving on. Something that is something that is like the 20th century music that is before we actually had this type of music written to inspire flight in film. This wonderful British composer Ralph Vaughan Williams wrote the famous The Lark Ascending. So in this, the solo violin, this is beautifully depicted here. It's also a beautiful recording. The solo violin is the bird. The melody spirals upward in long hovering arcs while the orchestra breathes gently below. And you will notice how the harmonic rhythm slows as if time is suspended. The violin's phrases seem to drift higher and higher until they will disappear into silence. If music beautiful as this was playing and somebody was there moving and talking over it, I would be very upset. So I understand if I'm upsetting you by interrupting this, but see how he rises to fade into this silence. This is one of the first examples in my music understanding that music was purposely written to inspire, to make us feel like we've left the ground. He actually wrote this in his correspondence. He says, I'm writing this so that people can close their eyes and feel that they're lifting off the ground and they're flying. And this was before soundtracking became a thing. And then there's rules. This is how you have to do it so that people feel like they're flying. And I will demonstrate again when we get to it. So we get to the 20th century toolbox of how to make things that sound like we're flying. And with this, we go from miracle to metaphor again, this time through film. Cinematic composers learned to make us feel we're flying, not through wings or engines, but through the melody, harmony, and orchestration. In film, the orchestra itself becomes the sky. So I will actually sing something here. You'll hear this interval a lot in the next few examples. It goes like this. Ah-ha, ah-ha, ah-ha. Right? In music, this is an interval of a fifth. Ah-ha, ha, ha, ha. So this is used a lot, and it will be used in every subsequent example to make us feel that we are taking off. This beautiful soundtrack, this from the 1978 film, the original Superman, 1978. And you will now hear the theme that you will recognize, the Superman theme, that was written by the king of all flying American movie composers, John Williams. Right? He wrote all of Star Wars, and he wrote the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, going back to the 70s, and then Superman, and then all the superheroes, like everything flying, including E.T., which is coming up, right? So, as this, somebody put this thing together, right? So we're coming to the theme, and you'll hear, ta-ta-ta. I listen for this. You hear? Ta-ta-ta. This is what makes us think that he's lifting or we're lifting, right? Now, until now, you could imagine it. Now, you see it. So they're showing it to you on film, right? You see it on the screen. The guy's flying. Right? You don't have to imagine it anymore. It's there. But until this, right? Composers had to make you feel that, oh, we are lifting here. So this is Superman, and you know it, and you know, right? And I will, this is where Superman first takes to the sky in Richard Donner's 1978 film. John Williams gave him the ultimate heroic ascent. The theme begins with a leap, a perfect fifth. It keeps rising. Brass and strings alternate in upward phrases, always climbing, never resting, even rhythmically. Tan-ta-tan. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-tan, right? He mirrors flight, long-held notes that release into sudden bursts of motion. This is the sound of human flight, idealized, triumphant, clean, limitless, right? No accidents here, no, everything goes well, happy ending, he saves the world and all of that. And this is the superhero, right? This is not a human hero that crashes his F-16 or crashes because his wings fell over. This is super. Very important. Something else that is different in a way, this is whimsy and wonder, flight as wonder, not as heroism. Not all flight is heroic. Some is simply wonder itself. In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Buckbeak's flight captures pure joy, fluttering woodwinds, this should be playing, swirling strings, and a soaring French horn theme. We'll just let you remember this, because this is, again, humans flying, but they're not really heroes. They can be witches, they can be all kinds of, right? Yeah, the beautiful performance of this piece. This, again, John Williams, the flying master composer. So you hear how this is magical, right? This can be a dark sky. It's not scary, but it's not heroic. And the rhythm here is this like ta 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 ta. It's like a 12/8. It's a lifting rhythm, a musical waltz in the air. There's no gravity here. For the first time, we're trying to allude to this floating, soaring in the air. Film music gives us wings, not by showing flight, by letting us feel it. And after this masterpiece, I will move on to something that's sillier, less majestic, yet very popular. So this is a totally different type of thing. Why is this different? Well, it was 1980s, right? So Reagan was president. All of that. It was a different world, right? Military might meant something, and it was also used as marketing, right? In this, flight took a new power. Sleek, mechanical, and masculine. This is very masculine. This is the Top Gun anthem. It combines electric guitar and synthesizer with cinematic reverb. We'll talk about that. A sound that fuses man and machine, but listen. Remember? Pam, pam. It's everywhere from now on. In every theme. Right? Ta-da. Like Superman was tan, ta-da, ta-da-da-da-da. Same thing. We don't even hear the connection, but it's there to talk to us, right? This is not about spiritual ascent anymore. It's about speed, technology, and control. So this anthem, slow build, it's actually a song. This is a song. It's like a pop song. From sustained synth pads to guitar heroics, mirrors a jet's climb from runway to the stratosphere. Ta-da! Right? This is the idea. Pam pam. Leave here tonight with this thing in your head, like ta-ta. Now, why is this different? This is Avatar, an incredible masterpiece of a movie in so many different ways. In Avatar, flight is a rite of passage. This guy's Jake, right? Jake's first ride on the Banshee becomes a spiritual initiation. This is music by James Horner. He paints it with sweeping string lines and ethnic percussion. You'll play until that point, a few more seconds. But listen for the dynamic breathing. So you can actually feel this big dragon flying under him, right? Almost like wings flapping. If you haven't seen any of these movies, I strongly recommend it. It's an incredible experience. As the melody climbs, dissonance results into open, beautiful chords. Musically, it is the moment fear becomes freedom. So James Horner reminds us here that flight is always about transformation from human to something greater. Because it was something that we were not supposed to do. Flight, we were not built to fly. It's the ultimate transformation. And think about it. We could swim, we could talk, we could cook, we could do all these things, write poetry, right? Make presentations. We were not supposed to fly, ever. Right? This is my favorite one. And I will actually show you the actual clip from the movie. This is from E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Again, John Williams wrote the music. This is magical to me. I saw the movie the day it came out. I was in the US visiting friends and family back in 1982, in the summer of 82. I think it was July when it came out. And I went the opening night and I was blown away. it changed my life. This and RoboCop for some reason, I don't know. Hey, so this is the purest flight of all. It's the child's dream. Because in your dream, what are we listening for? Ta ta. Only he goes the step further, and I will demonstrate. So the moment they lift off on their bicycles, not yet. So the federal government is after them. It's coming, it's coming. I promise you it's worth it. Here, ta ta, and now higher, ta ta, ta ta. And this is how we fly, even on bicycles, because this is in a child's dream. So you don't need the machines, you don't need the wings. Long suspended chords build tension, then release the surge of melody. It's modulation because it keeps going up and now again. Right? This is ta-da. Literally key changes that ascend through the scale. It's one of those great moments in cinema where picture and sound become inseparable. You can almost feel your stomach drop as they rise. Right? Because you don't expect it. They're riding bicycles. It's magical. It's also, what's his name? The Steven Spielberg, right? And we're almost there.
So far, so good. Very good.
That's why you need a music professor. I can't compete with my Foxy.
Right, I am very excited about the things I like. Right, so what is this now? Right? The right stuff. This is this now we're going past the atmosphere and we're going to be going into space, right? Where things will change, but this is like this American hero in space. Like it doesn't get any bigger than this, right? So the aviator had become the astronaut in the conscience of the viewer, of the audience, of the people, of the world. It became the astronaut, the conqueror of both air and space. So this is Bill Conti, who shamelessly ripped Tchaikovsky's music off. You will hear it. I mean, I hope you hear it. And it's shameless, but this is the story of these people who had what it took. You'll hear it now. Right? This is, if you hear it, you hear it. Right? So they go into space and they are now famous and they made it, all of that. Why is this different in my view? In this context, flight is not a rebellion. Flight is not imagination. Flight is destiny. It's like we are shown and made to believe that this was meant to be. That we belong up there, we'll make it, we'll be in space. Right? So we believe that. Became our destiny, and now it is. So we're now in space. Now, what happens in space? Now, things are different. Like like if you think of it scientifically, there's no sound in space, right? There's vacuum. So this is one of the questions I had growing up. Like I was reading comics and I was watching movies, and like you can hear things going into space, like making noise. This is not possible, right? We know that. But it took a long time. I think it was 2013 when Interstellar came out, this magnificent Christopher Nolan movie, where he actually consulted with scientists and people who flew and astronauts and NASA to make it as accurate as it was possible in 2013, with very, very few things that they missed in that. And I will play it because it's not loud and I can speak over it and save time. Play. I have to get used to your PC, right? I'm learning. So this is also famous. Why is this different? Because we made it up there. Now this is, like they say, the ultimate frontier. What's beyond here and what's beyond that? One thing we know is that we're floating. There's no gravity. We overcame gravity. We won, and now we're there and we're floating. Now, things are not moving forward. Things are not moving backwards or sideways. We're not going up or down. We're just floating there. How do you show this with music, right? This is a very totally different type of animal. So in Interstellar, we're taken beyond the atmosphere, and flight becomes, I like to use this word, meditation. Propulsion without direction, movement through the infinite. So Hans Zimmer's organ and electronics don't soar in the old sense. They expand, right? And you can close your eyes and turn off the lights here, and you don't need to do that, and this can go on forever. Like you could sleep to this, you could drive to this, you could, I have students that actually study to this, write papers to this, right? Because it has meditative quality. Instead of melody rising, sound itself swells like breathing. It's the sound of weightlessness. The dream of flight at the edge of silence. From myth to machine, from sky to space, the language of flight in music has always been the same. Lift, suspension, and release. So, we've gotten to space. Why am I going back 50 years or whatever it was, to 1968, where this movie came out, A Space Odyssey, 2001. This is a monumental moment in filmmaking because of the actual work itself and because it used music that was written 150 years before the movie, right? Again by Richard Strauss. And it's this, and it's going to be loud. I mean, it is by nature, it is. So this is an organ playing this very low C, which in this piano is a C sharp, right? It's actually usually pianos when they're lower, and this is higher, right? So this is an organ, and this is the lowest pedal of the organ, which is the lowest note a musical instrument can produce. Some churches, it's usually they're in churches, organs. This is so low that you can feel it, but you cannot really hear it. Now, you all know this. Listen to the interval. Right? Aha, same exact thing. Aha, ha. This is all about light and all of that. Why the drums? Because the drums is what was there before there was language. The drums were the first instrument that people played. Almost before there was civilization, there was drums. He alludes to the fact that there's always something pulling you down. And this is written on the text, Nietzsche's text of Also sprach Zarathustra, Tade efi Zarathustra, so said Zarathustra. And the lyrics, the text says, I don't want to say what it says, but I will explain how I understand it, that The day will come when the gods will fall and we will rise and become superhumans. Now, how do you say this in German without sounding funny? Right? Right. So, in this, right, I just want to say, when Stanley Kubrick used it to open 2001: A Space Odyssey, it became the sound of our species awakening. This is his own words, Stanley Kubrick. The death of God, the rise of man, the moment we claim the heavens as our own. Wow. And this is what this was made to allude to, right? And this goes over like all these centuries of in the making, because the music was written by Richard Wagner in 150 years prior to the movie, and then Nietzsche wrote the text for the original one, and then the text was used to build this story. And if anything, watch this movie again, because you can now see it in the context of AI, artificial intelligence, getting to the point where it can threaten us as a species, right? And you know this, you've heard this, but if you educate yourselves and you look back to the way these people saw, back then this was science fiction. Today it's not science fiction. People fall in love with artificial intelligence. People have committed suicide because they were driven to, right? I'm just reading the news to you. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So, in closing, the metaphor of flight in human evolution and emotion is what I'm talking about. What does it mean to fly? This is the part of my presentation that would take a couple of hours, like Evangelos says, if I had more than one musician in the room. I see one. Who else is a musician here? So there's two of us. There's two musicians in the room. In every era, flight stands for transcendence, the urge to rise above fear, limitation, and mortality. In music, this emotion has a grammar. Rising melodies, right, suggest aspiration. Suspended harmonies express weightlessness. Brass and choirs give us the glory of the heavens, because usually the heavens is up there, we're told. Right? Silence and reverb remind us of the infinite beyond, because sometimes silence is more powerful than noise. Right? Flight is both physics and philosophy, motion and meaning intertwined. So back to, how did we begin? We began with Icarus and Daedalus. And when we jumped to Leonardo da Vinci, it took 15 centuries, but we got there, right? So, we return to Leonardo. 500 years ago, he wrote, once you have tasted flight, this is his poetry, because he was also a poet. You will forever walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward, for there you have been, and there you will always long to return. Right? So Leonardo da Vinci was not just the guy who painted Mona Lisa and wrote poetry and invented the helicopter and flying, whatever, all these things that he did. He saw this dream that he would never actually live himself, that he in his head, he reached the sky and then he felt the need to ascend. And this, you can see this in all his work and his science and everything. I will end with one more reference to Christopher Tin, right? And I will say that the music doesn't end with triumph in the last piece we'll listen to. It ends in suspension, like a bird gliding on a thermal, never rising nor falling, forever in the act of dreaming. In this piece, which the composer himself directed to make this video, this is written on the text of Leonardo da Vinci, who was dreaming of flight, and this piece is called The Dream of Flight. And the text is the Latin text that Da Vinci wrote. There are versions of this video, of this soundtrack, with the actual text and also translated in English. And I implore you to go and look at it. So Christopher Tin writes, what is the dream of flight really? It's the dream to overcome, not gravity, but limitation itself. Every composer we've heard tonight, from Whittaker's tortured Leonardo's, to Williams' jubilant Superman, to Zimmer's cosmic drift, every composer writes about the same impulse, the longing to rise. Flight in music is the sound of the human spirit refusing to stay grounded. Even when we cannot leave the earth, we can sound as if we have. Every crescendo, every lifted phrase, every held breath in the orchestra is a reminder we were made to rise. From Icarus's fall to Leonardo's sketches, from the Wright brothers to astronauts, from myth to music to machine, the dream of flight continues. It's not just a story about air and wings, it's the story of imagination itself. The human need to reach beyond what is possible. As we listen to these final notes of Christopher Tin's Dream of Flight, imagine Leonardo looking up to the sky, still sketching, still dreaming. And perhaps that's what flight truly is. Not an act of escape, but a song of becoming. It is incredible to me that this music was written for a video game back in 1999, when graphics were so basic, right? And the music was written to aspire and to inspire this. So this is it. So thank you very much. I rushed a little bit because I timed it in the car. I finished putting this together on Thursday after our rehearsal on Thursday. So I had this concert yesterday, and it was like herding cats and all these musicians and sounds and lights and all of that and stuff like that. So I was so distracted, and I only had a chance to practice this in my head and read it to myself in the car, and it was 36 minutes, and I had promised him 25, so I was rushing. Can I offer you a gift, a present for being here, like you did the T-shirts? Let me show you this. So a very good friend of mine, also my Kubara, who is a filmmaker. So this is what we did. Athina Krikeli. She's a documentarian, and she's recognized, and she's made some beautiful, beautiful films. And her latest one is Wings of Excellence. I don't know how she translates this. Ταυτεράτης αριστείας, I think. Αριστείας νομίζω λέει. Όπως what? No, but it's already translated. I'm just trying to remember how to. So Wings of Excellence, because of what we're celebrating this weekend and St. Michael and all of this, this is being worldwide released tomorrow. If you want to scan that, you will land at the YouTube page where you can view this for free. So it's like an hour and so long. It's a very beautiful. I'll just show you the trailer that she prepared for this tonight. I think it's less than 2 minutes long. And play. End of, what is it? Play. Will it play now?
One more time.
It says end of slideshow. Maybe it's not meant to be.
It's not attached. You have to go on YouTube to watch.
It's not there. Oh, there we go. Oh, she just left a lot of black. All right. So this is this. I'll let her do the talking here because it's just. We don't need this, but I didn't want to cut it out because she's my kubara, you know? So I just did.
So long as large armies go to battle, so long will the air arm remain their spearhead. Thoughts work in silence. So is virtue. But how much of this could a kid have at the beginning of the 20th century when he had to fight with hunger, poverty, that uncertain tomorrow, facing a war?
Emmanuel Argyropoulos, Alexandros Karamanlakis, Aristidis Mouraitis, Dimitrios Kaberos are the first pilots on whom the future of the Hellenic Air Force was built. Among the excited spectators was the Prime Minister of Hellas, Evangelos. After the first successful flight and landing, he asks and flies with him.
Το αεροπλάνο εγκρίνεται ως το όπλο των αδυνάτων. Η ρυψοκίνδυνος μάλιστα και τολμηρά φύσης του Έλληνος θα καταστήσει τούτο λαμπρό πολέμο όπλο. Μέλλον να προσφέρει μεγάλας εκκλησίας.
I wrote the music for this, I forgot to say, so I'm the composer. But yeah, don't let that distract you.
Participation in the wars and the heroic moments of its people until today. A dedicated group of individuals works tirelessly with unparalleled and unpredictable coordination. Even during the most challenging times, the entire human workforce operates like a well-oiled machine, utilizing knowledge, experience, and a sense of duty to tackle the tasks at hand.
Και για τις ελληνικές ένοπλες δυνάμεις, ο μεγαλύτερος πολλαπλασιαστής ισχύος είναι το ανθρώπινο της δυναμικό. Εκεί θα γίνει διαφορά. Όσο καλό πλάνο και να έχει, αν ο κόσμος ο οποίος το πετάει, ο κόσμος ο οποίος το υπηρετεί, δεν είναι αντάκτης των περιστάσεων, δυστυχώς το αποτέλεσμα, το τελικό, δεν θα είναι αυτό που πρέπει.
Duty, honor, country. Three hallowed words that reverently dictate who those people are.
And so on. Yeah, it's not a good ending, but you know, this is just a quick preview of what you could view anytime after tomorrow. So if you follow this link, this will become available tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time, and you can view it. It's very informational, and she manages. I don't know how she does it. She just goes into places where it's hard to get in and like do video of. And fly on these planes, like some incredible footage there. So I think you will find it very interesting, right? So with that said, thank you again.